Chapter 1: A Stain on the Avenue. Morning in Manhattan was brisk, the kind of October chill that kept you awake and on edge. Eliza Hart, 24, pulled her worn denim jacket tighter as she weaved through the bustling sidewalks of Midtown. Her sneakers, threadbare but clean, struck a steady rhythm against the pavement. In her backpack, a dog-eared civil procedure textbook knocked against a half-empty water bottle. She had 20 minutes to get to the Langston Group for her morning shift as a janitor, and then straight to CUNY for her evening law class. Sleep had long been a luxury she couldn't afford. Fifth Avenue pulsed with its usual chaos, honking taxis, pedestrians dodging one another, and the occasional street vendor shouting about hot coffee. Eliza kept her head down, her jet-black ponytail swinging as she sidestepped a man in a pinstripe suit yelling into his phone. The rhythm of the city didn't faze her. It matched the beat of her heart. Every step was a reminder. Keep going. Fight. Law school wasn't cheap, neither was her tiny apartment in Queens. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. "You're stronger than this world, Eliza. Don't let it forget that." She was halfway across 52nd Street when a shiny red Porsche roared around the corner, its tires slicing through a puddle left by last night's rain. A stream of muddy water shot up with surgical precision. Eliza froze, too late to dodge. The cold, dirty splash hit her chest, soaking through her jacket and dripping down her jeans. She inhaled sharply, more in shock than anger. The car stopped. The driver's side window slid down with a soft whir. Selena Whitmore poked her head out, her golden hair glowing in the morning light. Designer sunglasses perched low on her nose, revealing a smirk sharp as glass. "Oops," she drawled, feigning innocence. "Didn't see you there, sweetie. Maybe people like you should stick to the alleyways, She tilted her head, eyeing Eliza from head to toe, as if she were a smudge on her perfect world. "Where you belong." Eliza clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. The words stung more than the mud. She wasn't naive. She knew Manhattan had layers, invisible lines between the haves and the have-nots. But this was deliberate. Her hazel eyes locked onto Selena's, searching for reason, for humanity. She found none, only cold amusement. Around them, a few passers-by slowed, phones already raised recording the scene. A woman in a trench coat muttered, "Disgusting," but kept walking. Eliza felt the weight of their stares, the silent judgment. She wanted to shout back, to tell Selena where she could shove her Porsche and her attitude. But she held it in. Words wouldn't wash off mud, and a scene could cost her a job she couldn't afford to lose. "Have a nice day," Eliza said evenly, though her chest burned. She turned and kept walking, the squelch of her wet shoes louder than the city noise. Behind her, Selena's laughter rang out sharp, brittle before the Porsche screeched away. 2 blocks down, parked discreetly along the curb, a sleek black Bentley sat with tinted windows. Inside, Damian Langston, 32, CEO of the Langston Group, had seen the entire thing. His lips pressed into a tight line, a muscle twitching in his freshly shaven jaw. He was on the phone with his CFO about a merger, but the image of Eliza soaked in mud, head held high, stopped him mid-sentence. "Damian, are you still there?" The CFO's static voice crackled through the speaker. "Call you back," Damian said shortly. He ended the call and leaned forward, his dark eyes fixed on Eliza's retreating figure. His driver, an older man with salt and pepper hair named Frank, glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Tough start for that girl," Frank murmured, shaking his head. "Some people got no shame." Damian didn't respond. His mind had drifted to a night 8 years ago. He'd been 24, a ghost of himself, hunched on a park bench in Brooklyn. His father's death had left him with nothing but a backpack and a bankruptcy notice. The world felt like a door slammed shut. And then a girl, slim, sharp-eyed, ponytail swaying, had stopped. She'd looked at him, not with pity, but with understanding. "You're not done yet," she'd said, handing him half a sandwich from her jacket pocket. "Eat, then keep going." She'd walked off before he could say a word. He never learned her name. Didn't need to. That moment, that tiny act of kindness, had pulled him back from the edge. And now, seeing her again, older, wearier, but unbroken, stirred something he couldn't name. Maybe guilt, maybe gratitude, or something deeper, sharper. Frank, Damien said, his voice low. Find out who she is. Quietly. Frank nodded, used to his boss's cryptic requests. What about the girl in the Porsche? Damien's eyes hardened. I know who she is. Selena Whitmore, heiress to Whitmore Holdings, a rival company known for its glitz and shady dealings. He'd faced her kind before the ones who wielded power like a weapon. But this wasn't business. This was personal. Eliza reached the towering glass building of the Langston Group, her jacket still dripping. Reggie, the kind-faced security guard, raised his brows as she swiped her ID card. Rough morning, kid? He asked, tossing her a clean towel from his desk. Could be worse, Eliza muttered, managing a smile. She wiped at her jacket, but the stain had set. No time to change, she was cutting it close. She headed to the janitor's locker room, swapping her coat for a gray uniform. The scent of bleach and pine cleaner greeted her like an old friend. She pulled her cart and got to work wiping down conference tables, emptying bins with mechanical precision. As she worked, her mind circled back to the incident. Selena's words echoed like a bad song. People like you. Eliza knew what that meant. Poor, blue-collar, invisible. She'd heard it before in subtler forms from professors who doubted she'd last at CUNY, from classmates who flinched at her calloused hands. But she wasn't here to prove them wrong. She was here for herself, for the law degree that would let her fight for people the world had overlooked. By the time her shift ended, the mud on her jeans had dried into a crust. She slipped her jacket back on, shouldered her backpack, and headed for the subway. The city blurred around her neon signs, murmuring crowds, distant sirens. She checked her phone. 2 hours until class. Just enough time for coffee and review. She didn't notice the Bentley following from a distance, its occupant watching her with something like reverence. Damien leaned back in his seat, fingers tapping the armrest. He didn't know what he'd do next, not yet. But he knew one thing. Eliza Hart was not invisible. Not to him. And Selena Whitmore had just made a very expensive mistake. You're watching Soul Stories, where love, healing, and hope come alive. If your heart feels heavy today, tell us in the comments. Sometimes sharing lightens the load. Now stay with us, the story is just beginning. Chapter 2. The Smell of Bleach and a Lawyer's Dream. On the subway to CUNY, Eliza was wedged between the rush hour crowd. She pulled out her civil procedure textbook and flipped to her notes on tort law. An elderly man sitting next to her glanced over, curious. Law, huh? What do you plan to do with that? He asked, voice raspy. Eliza smiled without looking up. Help people find their voice, especially when no one's listening. The man nodded slowly, as if that answer told him everything he needed to know about her life. Eliza didn't say more, but in her mind, she saw her mother who had died after years of exhausting and futile litigation against an insurance company. The lawsuits had drained her mother's strength and finances, leaving Eliza with a harsh truth. The law could be justice, but it could also be a trap. She wanted to become a lawyer to dismantle those traps, not create new ones. At CUNY, the evening civil law class was held in an old lecture hall, scented faintly with wood and dusty books. Professor Rosenthal, a thin man with glasses that always seemed to slip down his nose, was dissecting a case on civil liability. Eliza sat in the third row, taking notes with the urgency of someone for whom every word was gold. When Rosenthal posed a question about punitive damages in intentional harm cases, she raised her hand. If the plaintiff can prove malicious intent, they may be entitled to punitive damages, Eliza said clearly. But in New York, courts often cap those amounts to prevent abuse. Rosenthal raised an eyebrow, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Very good, Miss Hart. You've read ahead, haven't you? The class chuckled lightly, but Eliza only smiled, her shoulders relaxing. This was where she belonged, not in bleach-scented hallways, but in debates about justice. She didn't notice another student, a brown-haired girl with jealous eyes sneaking glances at her. Rumors about Eliza, the janitor, who was also a top student, had started spreading through the class. Meanwhile, at the top floor office of the Langston Group, Damien Langston sat behind a walnut desk, Manhattan's lights casting reflections through the glass walls. He had just wrapped a meeting with the executive board, but his mind wasn't in it. The image of Eliza, soaked and unyielding, kept returning. He wasn't sure why that moment 8 years ago, a piece of bread, A few words had left such a deep impression. Maybe because it was the first time after his father's death that he felt like more than a statistic in the homeless data. He opened his computer and sent a brief email to Linda Carter, the head of the CSR department. Find a janitorial employee named Eliza Hart. Check her file, but do not contact her directly. I want to know if she qualifies for any of our support programs, scholarships, internships, anything legal and transparent. Linda responded almost immediately. Will do, but I'll need a reason to report to the board. Which specific program? Damien hesitated. He couldn't exactly write, because she once saved me. That's not how a CEO operates. Instead, he typed, call it an investment in talent. We need people with potential, not just money. He hit send, knowing Linda would follow proper protocol. He didn't want Eliza to receive special treatment. He wanted her to get the opportunity she deserved. Back at CUNY, class ended at 9 p.m. Eliza packed her notebook into her backpack, turning down a few classmates' invitations for a beer. She didn't have money for hangouts, and truthfully, she didn't want to explain why her hands always faintly smelled of bleach. She caught the last train back to Queens, city lights flickering past the windows. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from Reggie. You okay, kid? You look tense today. Eliza smiled and typed back, still breathing, Reggie. Thanks. She didn't mention Selena, or the stain, or the humiliation. She'd learned long ago that complaining changed nothing. Instead, she focused on tonight's case reading, on the dream of one day standing in a courtroom not to win, but to do what's right. When she stepped into her tiny apartment, a one-bedroom with a folding bed and a desk stacked with books, she switched on the light and pulled a packet of instant noodles from the cupboard. It wasn't a fancy dinner, but it was enough to keep going. She sat down, opened her textbook, and began reading about legal precedents. Outside, Manhattan kept pulsing with life, but in this little room, it was just her and her dream. Across the city, Damien stood by his office window, gazing down at the glittering stream of traffic. He thought about Eliza, about the way she lifted her chin in front of Selena. There was something in her, a flame that refused to die, that made him want to act. Not out of gratitude, but because deep down, he knew. People like her were what made this world worth living in. He turned back to his desk and opened a folder on the Street Justice Initiative, a CSR program Langston was developing to provide free legal support for low-income residents. He scribbled a note. Candidate suggestion, Eliza Hart. He didn't know if she would accept the opportunity, but he would make sure it reached her. Not as a gift, but as a door she had every right to open. Chapter 3. The Fateful Auction Night. Friday night in Manhattan glittered with lights, but inside the Plaza Hotel, the glow of the crystal chandeliers was even more dazzling. The Whitmore Foundation's fundraising gala, hosted by Selena Whitmore, was the event of the season for New York's elite. CEOs, investors, and media personalities filled the ballroom, champagne flutes gleaming in their hands, their laughter a well-orchestrated symphony. Eliza Hart, however, did not belong to this world. She stood in a corner of the room, dressed in a black server's uniform, a tray of drinks balanced in her hands, her eyes focused on her work. Earlier that afternoon, Eliza had received a message from Maria, a co-worker from the Langston Group's janitorial team. Eliza, there's a serving shift at the Plaza tonight for the gala. Triple pay, just a few hours. I can't make it. Can you cover? Eliza had planned to spend the evening studying, but the money was enough to cover a month's rent. She texted back, okay, thanks. Maria replied with a chuckle, wear comfy shoes. The rich love bossing people around. And so, Eliza was here, her ponytail pulled tight, her flat shoes scuffing the polished wood floor, trying to blend into the background. Selena Whitmore glided through the ballroom like a queen, her red sequin gown clinging to her figure and sparkling under the lights. She paused to shake hands with a sponsor, her perfect smile hiding eyes as cold as glass. When she spotted Eliza near the drink table, a flicker of surprise crossed her face, quickly replaced by amusement. Eliza, the girl she had splashed with mud on the street, was now standing in her gala. Selena approached with her champagne flute, her steps slow and deliberate, like a predator. Mud girl, Selena said, just loud enough for nearby guests to turn their heads. Didn't expect to see you here. Trying to claw your way into high society, huh? She tilted her glass, and before Eliza could react, pale gold liquid spilled down her shirt. The black fabric clung wetly to her chest. "Oh, so sorry," Selena added, feigning concern. "You look better in an apron than a gown anyway." The ballroom fell silent, eyes turning toward them curious, pitying, or simply entertained. Eliza's heart pounded, but her hands stayed steady on the tray. Not a single glass wobbled. She took a deep breath, silently counted to 3, a habit from her mother's days, when debt letters used to pile up on their kitchen table. "Don't let them see you break." She looked Selena square in the eye, her hazel gaze unwavering. "I'll bring you a fresh glass," she said calmly, and turned toward the bar as if nothing had happened. The crowd murmured, a few people chuckled, but Selena frowned. She'd wanted a reaction, anger, tears, but Eliza gave her none. In the VIP row, Damian Langston sat quietly, his fingers clenched around his wine glass. He'd come to the gala suspecting Selena was targeting a deal with one of Langston Group's partners, but now all he saw was red. Not from the wine, but from Selena's cruelty and Eliza's unwavering grace. He set his glass down, stood, and walked to the stage as the MC invited sponsors to say a few words. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damian said, his deep, authoritative voice echoing through the mic. The stage lights caught his perfectly tailored black suit, sharpening the edges of his striking features. "I would like to make a contribution to the Whitmore Foundation." He paused, his gaze brushing over Selena, now frozen near the head table. "The Langston Group will donate $2 million, but under one condition." The room held its breath. Selena forced a tight smile, clearly caught off guard by the interruption. Damian continued, voice steady. "The funds must be allocated to provide free legal aid for workers facing discrimination. I trust the Whitmore Foundation agrees that justice is a core value of any institution." He emphasized the word justice, and his eyes briefly met Eliza's, who was now near the bar, dabbing at her shirt with a paper napkin. Applause rippled through the room, though Selena could barely mask her irritation. She stepped onto the stage, shaking Damian's hand stiffly. "Of course we're grateful," she said sweetly, though her gaze could have cut glass. Damian gave a curt nod and stepped off stage, not giving her a chance to extend the charade. Meanwhile, Eliza kept working. She moved through the tables with a fresh tray of drinks, smiling politely, answering simple questions like, "What kind of wine is this?" with flawless professionalism. The stain on her shirt remained, but she didn't let it slow her down. An older woman in a blue silk dress stopped her gently. "You handled that well," the woman whispered, her eyes warm. "Don't let people like her bring you down." Eliza nodded, something soft and steady blooming in her chest. Not everyone saw her as invisible. When the gala ended, Eliza helped clean up, stacking glasses and folding napkins into bins. The event manager, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, patted her shoulder. "Good job tonight, Hart. If you ever need extra work, give me a call." She smiled, thanked him, but in her mind all she wanted was to go home, shower, and study for tomorrow's law class. She didn't know that Damian had left early and was now sitting in the black Bentley parked outside the plaza. He watched Eliza through the window, her figure disappearing into the Manhattan night. He picked up his phone and called Linda Carter, the CSR director. "Street Justice Initiative," he said, voice low. "I want to accelerate the timeline, and I want a list of eligible candidates priority to current employees like janitors and servers." Linda, though used to Damian's late-night calls, was still surprised. "Anyone in particular, sir?" "Eliza Hart," Damian replied, "but do not contact her directly. Find her file, check her academic record, and make sure she's fairly considered. I don't want any favors, just a chance." He hung up, eyes still fixed on the street where Eliza had just walked. He wasn't sure why he was doing this, maybe because of that half sandwich 8 years ago, maybe because of the way she stood tall against Selena. But deep down, he knew. Eliza Hart wasn't just someone he owed. She was a reminder that kindness, however small, could change the course of a life. Meanwhile, in her private suite upstairs, Selena sat with her third glass of champagne. She stared out the window, her expression darkening as she thought about Damian and Eliza. "Who is she to show up here?" she muttered. She didn't know yet, but she would find out. And when she did, Eliza Hart would regret ever stepping into her spotlight. Chapter 4. The Unexpected Invitation. The Monday after the gala, Eliza woke in her tiny queen's apartment, weak sunlight filtering through the thin curtains. She sat up quickly and checked her phone. 5:30 a.m. Her janitorial shift at the Langston Group started at 6:30, and she couldn't be late. The wine stain from the gala had been scrubbed out of her server uniform, but the memory of Selena's mocking smile still clung tightly. Eliza shook her head to push it away. She didn't have time to dwell on resentment. She threw on her denim jacket, shoved her civil procedure textbook into her backpack, and rushed out the door. On the subway, she reviewed notes for that night's law class. An elderly woman beside her glanced over curiously. "Law school, huh? You look busy, sweetheart." Eliza smiled and nodded. "I want to help people. Give them a fair shot." The woman nodded, her gaze warm. Moments like this, however small, reminded Eliza she wasn't alone. At Langston Group headquarters, she started her shift as usual, pushing her supply cart through gleaming hallways. Reggie, the security guard, waved at her. "Heard you did well at the gala," he said, winking. "Bet the rich folks didn't expect you to stay that calm." Eliza gave a small laugh but didn't mention the champagne incident. She just wanted to get through her work and head to class. Mid-shift, her lanky coworker Javier tapped her shoulder. "Hart, management wants to see you on the 40th floor, CSR office, right now." Eliza frowned. The CSR department corporate social responsibility had nothing to do with janitorial work. "Why?" she asked. Javier shrugged. "No idea, but it looks serious." Eliza left her cart behind, heart pounding. She feared this was about the gala, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. She stepped into the elevator, trying to stay calm. The 40th floor was executive territory with plush carpets and abstract art on the walls. She knocked on the CSR office door, and a woman's voice called out, "Come in." Linda Carter, the CSR director, sat behind a desk, her silver hair neatly pinned back. Beside her sat a man Eliza recognized instantly. Damian Langston, CEO of the Langston Group. He wore a gray suit, his gaze calm but sharp. Eliza froze, her mind spinning. The CEO? Meeting with her? What was going on? "Good morning, Ms. Hart," Linda said, her tone warm yet professional. "Please have a seat. We'd like to discuss an opportunity." Eliza sat slowly, gripping the edge of the chair. She glanced at Damian, but he merely gave a slight nod, letting Linda speak. Linda explained that the Langston Group was launching the Street Justice Initiative, a program to provide free legal aid for low-income New Yorkers. "We're looking for a project assistant, someone who understands the law and is driven to serve the community," she said. "Your file stood out. You're a senior at CUNY, correct? With impressive grades, particularly in civil law." Eliza blinked, trying to process it. "Yes, but why me?" She wasn't naive. Janitors didn't just get invited to join major projects. She turned to Damian, suspicion in her eyes. "This is about the gala, isn't it? Or the street incident?" Damian finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "No, Ms. Hart, it's about your capability. HR reviewed internal staff profiles, and your name stood out. We don't hand out favors, we invest in potential." Eliza pressed her lips together. She wanted to believe him, but life had taught her nothing came without a catch. Her mother had once believed in empty promises and paid with endless court battles and unpaid bills. "I appreciate it," she said slowly, "but I need clarity. What does this job require, and why now?" Linda exchanged a glance with Damian, then slid a folder across the table. "This is the job description. You'd assist our legal team conduct research, review precedents, occasionally meet with clients. The pay is significantly higher than janitorial work, and hours are flexible so your studies won't be disrupted. We chose you because you understand the people. This initiative is for those without a voice." Eliza flipped through the document, scanning the details. The project would help exploited workers, wrongfully evicted tenants, people like her mother once was. Her heart pounded, not from fear this time, but from excitement. This was her dream, not someday in a courtroom, but here now. Still, she hesitated. She looked at Damian, searching his face for pity or calculation. "Mr. Langston," she said firmly, "if I accept, it's not because someone feels they owe me. I'll do it because I want to." Damian smiled slightly for the first time during the meeting. "I wouldn't expect anything less, Ms. Hart." After a pause, Eliza nodded. I accept. She didn't say more, but silently she promised herself, I'll prove I deserve this, not for this opportunity, but for who I am. As she left the room, Linda turned to Damien. She's sharper than I expected. Are you sure there's no personal reason here? Damien didn't answer. He stared out the window at Manhattan's twinkling skyline. He didn't mention the sandwich or the night he'd nearly given up. But he knew Eliza didn't need his gratitude. She needed a chance, and he had just given it. Eliza returned to her shift, but something felt lighter. She wiped tables and emptied trash bins, but every movement now carried new purpose. She texted Maria, the friend who had sent her to the gala shift. Thanks for the other night. It might have changed everything. Maria replied with a string of laughing emojis, unaware she had just opened a door Eliza never expected. Elsewhere in Manhattan, Selena Whitmore sat in the luxurious office of Whitmore Holdings, a cup of cold coffee on her desk. She scrolled through the gala's guest list, but her mind was elsewhere. She remembered Damien's eyes on stage, how he had publicly demanded his $2 million go toward justice, a word that had felt like a slap. The gala had been her playground, a stage for Whitmore power. Damien had turned it into a warning, and that janitor girl, Eliza Hart, had stood there, calm as if she belonged. Selena gripped her pen, nails digging into her palm. She was convinced, if it hadn't been for Eliza, Damien wouldn't have dared humiliate her in front of the city's elite. Who does she think she is? Selena muttered. She didn't understand why Eliza enraged her, so maybe it was the quiet defiance in her eyes, or the way Damien seemed to notice her. Selena wasn't used to being upstaged, especially not by a nobody. She called her assistant. Look into a janitor named Eliza Hart, works at Langston Group. I want everything family, past, anything usable. She paused, her tone ice cold. And hurry, she needs a lesson. The assistant nodded and left the room. Selena looked out the window, Manhattan's lights reflected in her eyes. Eliza Hart might think she was invisible, but Selena would make sure she regretted stepping into her spotlight. Meanwhile, Eliza stepped out of the Langston building as her shift ended, the sunset casting gold across the sky. She took a deep breath. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't just surviving, she was living. The Street Justice Initiative wasn't the destination, but it was a beginning, and this time, she would write her own story. Chapter 5. A Past Recalled. Eliza sat in the small office of the Street Justice Initiative on the 38th floor of Langston Group's headquarters. Her desk was piled high with legal files and handwritten notes, and a paper coffee cup sat cold in the corner. 2 weeks into her role as a project assistant, she had adjusted to the new rhythm. Cleaning in the mornings, legal research in the afternoons, law classes at CUNY by night. Exhausting but worth it. Every case she read, every client she met like a worker owed months of wages, or a single mother facing eviction reminded her of her mother and why she started all this. Today, she was reviewing a workplace discrimination case when a knock came at the door. Damien Langston stepped in, sleeves rolled up on a white shirt, no suit jacket, looking more approachable than usual. Ms. Hart, he said in his deep voice, do you have a moment? Eliza looked up, slightly surprised. Damien rarely came to the project office, preferring not to appear as if he were hovering. She nodded, sliding the files aside. Of course, Mr. Langston. Is there a problem with the initiative? Damien took the seat across from her, a trace of hesitation in his eyes, a rare sight on his usually composed face. No, the project is doing well. Linda says you're exceeding expectations. He paused as though carefully choosing his words. I wanted to talk about something else. About 8 years ago. Eliza frowned, confused. 8 years ago, she repeated, heart starting to race. There was something in his tone, an uncommon sincerity, that told her this wasn't a work conversation. Damien inhaled deeply, locking eyes with her. I was homeless once, Eliza. After my father took his own life following bankruptcy, I lost everything. The house, the money, even hope. One night in a Brooklyn park, I was sitting on a bench, clutching a torn backpack, thinking I was finished. Then a girl walked by. She didn't just give me half a sandwich, she looked at me and said, "You're not done yet. Keep going." That girl was you. Eliza felt heat rush to her ears. She remembered that night, a bitterly cold winter evening when she was 16, just off her shift at a bakery in Queens. She saw a thin, trembling young man in a threadbare coat, and something in her chest ached. She didn't have much, but she had half a warm sandwich. She handed it to him, offered a few words of encouragement, and kept walking. She had never thought of that moment again. That was you, she whispered, voice catching. Damien nodded, a faint, wistful smile on his lips. I never knew your name, but I didn't forget. That moment pulled me back. It gave me the strength to start over, to build Langston Group. He leaned forward slightly, voice lower. I'm not telling you this to make you feel indebted or so I can repay you. I just wanted you to know, Eliza, that you changed my life before I ever had a chance to change yours. Eliza lowered her gaze, fingers gripping the edge of the desk. She didn't know what to say. Emotions surged: surprise, pride, and a hint of confusion. She had never imagined that one small act of kindness could carry such weight. I just did what was right, she murmured, voice soft but steady. Everyone needs someone. At some point. Damien looked at her, his expression softening. It wasn't pity, it wasn't simple gratitude, it was understanding. Despite living in different worlds, both of them knew what it felt like to stand at the margins of life. The silence between them stretched not awkward, but like a thread drawing them closer. Eliza felt an unexpected warmth, not love, not yet, but a deep respect, as if, for the first time, they truly saw each other. Their moment was interrupted by a knock. Linda, carrying a new stack of files. Damien stood, nodding to Eliza. Keep up the good work, Ms. Hart, he said, returning to his professional tone, though his gaze still held something warmer. Eliza gave a faint smile, her heart beating faster than usual. Across Manhattan, Selena Whitmore sat in the sleek office of Whitmore Holdings, her icy gaze fixed on a thin file. Her assistant, a wiry man named Ethan, had just delivered it. Eliza Hart, Ethan said cautiously, law student at CUNY, janitorial staff at Langston Group, no family mother, passed away 6 years ago. Clean record, no scandals, nothing notable aside from high academic performance. Selena narrowed her eyes and tossed the file onto her desk. Clean? No way. She still remembered the gala, how Damian Langston had stood on stage, emphasizing justice as if it were a personal jab at her. She had been humiliated in front of hundreds of guests, and she was certain Eliza, the defiant-eyed janitor, was the reason. If Eliza hadn't shown up, hadn't stood there like she belonged, Damien would never have dared to undermine her. She has to have something, Selena said coldly. Dig deeper. Friends, social media, anything useful. I want her weakness. Ethan nodded and left. Selena stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Manhattan traffic below. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone like Eliza. Eliza wasn't just a janitor, she was a threat, a stain on Selena's perfect canvas. And she would make sure Eliza understood that no one made Selena Whitmore look small without paying for it. Back at Langston Group, Eliza finished her shift with a strange feeling lingering. She couldn't stop thinking about Damien, about what he'd shared. She had seen him in business magazines, cold, untouchable. But today he was human, a man who had once shivered in a park, needing her just as she had once needed her mother. She wasn't sure what it meant, but she felt something, an unexpected closeness, a budding trust. As she stepped outside, the streetlights were already glowing. She texted Reggie, "It's been a long day. How are you?" Reggie replied instantly, "Still watching over the rich folks, kiddo. You okay?" Eliza smiled, typing back, "Better than okay." She didn't mention Damien. She didn't mention the past being brought back to light. But as she boarded the subway, she felt a quiet relief, as if a part of her, the part that always wondered if her kindness mattered, had finally gotten an answer. Meanwhile, Damien sat in his office, eyes on the computer screen, displaying progress reports from the Street Justice Initiative. But his mind was elsewhere, back in that Brooklyn park, in the look in Eliza's eyes today. He didn't know what was beginning, but he knew one thing. Eliza Hart wasn't just a memory, she was the present, and maybe, just maybe, the future. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Chapter 6. A Legal Wound. Mid-November in Manhattan carried a sharp chill, as if the city were bracing for a brutal winter. Eliza Hart stepped into the office of the Street Justice Initiative, her backpack heavy with law books and a cheap paper cup of coffee. She was used to the grueling schedule now, mornings as a project assistant, evenings at CUNY for law school. But today, as she opened her work email, a subject line made her freeze. Subject: temporary suspension from Street Justice Initiative. The message from Linda Carter, CSR Director, was brief but icy. Due to recent allegations of misconduct, you are hereby suspended from the Street Justice Initiative until further notice. Please return all files and refrain from contact with clients. Eliza reread the words, her heart pounding. Allegations? Misconduct? She had never broken a rule, never argued with anyone. She immediately called Linda, but it went straight to voicemail. Before she could gather her thoughts, another email arrived, this time from the CUNY Scholarship Office. Due to recent negative publicity, your scholarship has been revoked. Please contact us to discuss tuition payment options. Eliza felt the blood drain from her face. She opened a browser, typed her name, and a flood of articles appeared. CUNY law student uses CEO connection for career leap. Langston Group janitor exploits Street Justice Initiative. Eliza Hart, from mop to management, but how? The articles published on gossip blogs and anonymous forums were filled with fabricated details. Claims that she had seduced Damian Langston to land her role, that she faked poverty to get a scholarship, even rumors that she had been fired in the past for fraud. No evidence, just grainy photos of her at the gala, leaving the Langston building paired with nasty comments. One anonymous X account posted, "Who does she think she is? From janitor to boardroom on a smile?" Eliza gripped her phone, fingers trembling. She wanted to scream, to shatter the screen, but instead she sat there, breathing deep, counting to 3 the way her mother had taught her. Stay calm, find a way. She knew these rumors hadn't spread on their own. Selena Whitmore. Her name flashed in Eliza's mind like lightning. No proof yet, but instinct told her. Only Selena had both the malice and the resources to orchestrate something like this. On the top floor of Langston Group, Damian Langston read the same articles, his face darkening. He called Linda into his office. "What the hell is this?" he asked, voice like ice. "Who authorized Eliza Hart's suspension?" Linda sighed and placed a folder on his desk. "The board requested it, Damian. These articles have gone viral, and several shareholders raised concerns. They say if we keep Ms. Hart in the program, the company could be accused of favoritism or worse, abuse of power. I didn't want to suspend her, but we need to investigate to protect the firm's reputation." Damian slammed his fist lightly on the desk, anger flaring in his eyes. "Investigate? This is fake news. She hasn't done anything wrong." Linda raised a hand, voice steady. "I know, but you're the CEO. If you step in directly, it will look like you have a personal motive. We need a third-party review, an independent auditing firm. I've already contacted one, but it will take time." Damian pressed his lips into a hard line. He wanted to act now, hold a press conference and shut down the lies. But he knew Linda was right. One misstep, and both Eliza and the Langston Group could face irreversible damage. "Keep me in the loop," he said firmly, "and make sure Ms. Hart is treated fairly." Meanwhile, Eliza left the project office, her mind spinning. She returned to her janitorial duties, pushing her supply cart through the hallways. But every glance from her co-workers, some curious, some pitying, stabbed like a blade. Javier, her colleague, pulled her aside. "Hart, I saw those posts. It's all garbage. Are you okay?" Eliza forced a smile, her eyes burning. "I'm fine, thanks." She didn't want to explain, didn't want sympathy. She just wanted to work, to study, to forget this nightmare. That night in her Queens apartment, Eliza sat at her desk, the soft desk lamp casting light over a pile of textbooks. She opened her laptop and revisited the articles, looking for clues. Some details, like her exact time leaving the Langston building, could only have come from someone watching her. She thought of Selena, of that cold stare at the gala. She could sue. She could hire a lawyer and trace the source of the slander. She knew enough law to stand a good chance, but then she remembered her mother those nights crying after court hearings, the mountain of legal bills, and the eventual collapse from sheer exhaustion. Eliza closed the laptop, tears falling down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. She wouldn't sue not out of fear, but because she refused to let the legal system chew her up the way it did her mother. She texted Reggie, "Rough day, got any advice?" He replied instantly, "Keep your head up, kid. Truth always wins, it just takes its sweet time." Eliza smiled faintly, though her heart was heavy. What she didn't know was that Damien was on a call with a forensic auditing firm. "I want everything, IP logs, accounts, transactions," he said, voice unyielding. "Find out who's behind this. Fast." Across the city, Selena Whitmore sipped red wine in her penthouse, eyes sharp. Ethan, her assistant, stood before her, reporting. "The posts have spread just like you planned. There's no way to trace them. They were uploaded through anonymous accounts and an offshore media firm." Selena smiled, but her gaze was ice. "Good, but it's not enough. I want her gone out of Langston, out of CUNY, out of everything." Ethan nodded, though unease flickered in his chest. Selena didn't just want to discredit Eliza. She wanted to destroy her. Eliza lay on her folding bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. She thought of Damien, of the day he told her his story. She wanted to believe he would help, but she also knew he was bound by the role he carried. She didn't blame him. She only reminded herself, "I've survived before, I'll survive again." She closed her eyes, determined not to let Selena win. But deep down, she knew. This battle was just beginning. Chapter 7. The Secret Investigation. Manhattan was soaked in an early winter rain, tiny droplets tapping against the windows of the Langston Group headquarters. Damien Langston sat in his top-floor office, eyes fixed on a spreadsheet full of metrics and figures. It had been 3 weeks since the vicious articles about Eliza Hart began circulating, and each passing day brought a growing sense of helplessness. Not from a lack of resolve, but from being bound by the very system he'd built, a corporation ruled by a board of directors that placed public image above all else. Immediately after Eliza was suspended, he had hired Sterling and Associates, one of New York's top independent audit firms. "I want everything," he had told Margaret Sterling, the sharp-minded lead investigator. "Accounts, IP addresses, financial transactions, anything that leads to the source of those rumors. And I want it clean. No trace back to Langston Group." Margaret nodded, understanding this wasn't just a corporate issue, it was personal. Today, the final report had arrived. Damien flipped through the pages until his finger stopped on a bolded section. Social media posts and online articles originated from an offshore media company based in the Cayman Islands, funded through an account linked to Whitmore Holdings. The individual responsible is identified as Ethan Caldwell, personal assistant to Selena Whitmore. Damien pressed his lips together, a slow-burning rage rising to the surface. He had suspected Selena, but seeing it in black and white still jolted him. She hadn't just wanted to humiliate Eliza. She wanted to destroy her. He called Linda Carter, the CSR director, into his office. "We have enough," he said, sliding the report across the desk. "This evidence ties Selena Whitmore directly to the smear campaign. I want a press conference, public truth," and Eliza's name cleared. Linda skimmed the report, brows furrowing. "Damien, this is solid, but the board won't agree easily. Whitmore Holdings is still a major partner, even if relations have been strained. If we publicly accuse Selena, they could sue us for defamation. We'll need 2/3 of the board to approve this." Damien nodded, his jaw set. "I'll convince them. Schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow, and make sure every member receives this report before midnight." Meanwhile, Eliza Hart was pushing her janitorial cart through the 32nd floor hallway, the fluorescent lighting casting a dull glow on her tired face. Being suspended from the Street Justice Initiative and losing her scholarship had hit her hard, but she hadn't broken. She still attended CUNY classes, now paying tuition through savings and a small loan. Every night in her Queens apartment, she studied late into the night, determined not to fall. Because if she fell, Selena would win. Still, the pain lingered, like a wound that refused to heal. The next morning, Damien stood outside the boardroom, dressed in a sharp black suit, eyes burning with quiet resolve. 12 board members sat around the long oak table, the Sterling and Associates report in front of them. Damien began his presentation succinct, unwavering. We have irrefutable proof that Selena Whitmore orchestrated the smear campaign against Eliza Hart, a dedicated employee of Langston Group. If we fail to act, we not only fail Ms. Hart, we send the message that this company tolerates deceit. Harold Grayson, one of the senior board members, frowned. Damien, I understand your outrage, but going public with this could spark war with Whitmore Holdings. What happens to our stock? What if they sue? Damien responded instantly, voice sharp. We won't go public without a plan. Legal has reviewed the findings. Every claim is verified by a third party. If Whitmore sues, they lose. And as for the stock, I'd rather take a short-term dip than sacrifice our long-term integrity. We're Langston Group. We stand for what's right. After nearly an hour of debate, the board voted. 8 out of 12 approved the motion. Damien exhaled, but he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Protecting Eliza, not just her reputation, but her future. He called Linda. Schedule the press conference for Friday. I want everything airtight, evidence, message, clarity. And Linda, make sure Ms. Hart is informed, but don't pressure her to attend. She's been through enough. In Selena Whitmore's penthouse, Ethan entered, his face pale. Ms. Whitmore, I just heard from a contact at Langston. They're investigating the articles. They may have traced the offshore firm. Selena gripped her wine glass, her fingernails digging into her palm. That's impossible, she said, voice trembling with fury. You told me it was untraceable. Ethan lowered his head, unable to reply. Selena stood abruptly, eyes ice cold. If they found it, I'll take Langston down with me. Eliza Hart is not worth losing everything. But deep down, Selena felt a flicker of unease. She had underestimated Eliza, and perhaps Damien too. She turned back to the window, watching the rain blur the Manhattan skyline. She wasn't done, not yet. But this time, she'd need a bigger, crueler plan. Back in Queens, Eliza lay on her fold-out bed, streetlight filtering through the curtain. She had no idea about the battle being fought on her behalf. She didn't know the truth was finally surfacing. She only knew one thing. She would keep going, even if the world turned against her. She closed her eyes, and in the quiet, she dreamed of standing in a courtroom not to win, but to do what was right. Chapter 8. The press conference that changed everything. On Friday morning, the conference hall inside the Langston Group headquarters blazed with camera flashes. Reporters from major outlets, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and a host of online platforms crowded into their seats, recorders and phones raised high. The air was tense, as if all of Manhattan was holding its breath. Damien Langston stood behind the podium, clad in a sharp navy blue suit. His calm gaze didn't mask the resolve in his posture. On the giant screen behind him, the Langston Group logo appeared next to a bold phrase, Truth and Justice. Eliza Hart wasn't present. Damien had asked Linda Carter to contact her, explain the purpose of the press conference, and invite her to attend, but Eliza had declined. Thank you, she replied via email, brief, firm. But I don't want to be the center of attention. I just want the truth. Damien respected her decision, though a part of him had hoped she'd come to see that she wasn't alone in this fight. He cleared his throat, eyes scanning the room. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his deep voice echoing through the mic. Today, Langston Group stands here to clarify an incident that has damaged the reputation of one of our employees and of our company. The recent allegations aimed at Ms. Eliza Hart, a law student, and our project assistant are entirely false and were orchestrated with malicious intent. Cameras fired. Damien raised a hand and signaled to the screen behind him. A summary of the Sterling and Associates report appeared, with certain details blurred to protect sensitive information. Following an independent investigation, we have confirmed that the negative articles and social media posts originated from an offshore media firm funded by an individual directly linked to Whitmore Holdings. We have verifiable evidence of financial transactions, IP addresses, and fabricated social media accounts, all tracing back to one person, Selena Whitmore. The room buzzed. A reporter raised a hand, but Damien continued, his voice unwavering. Langston Group is immediately terminating all partnerships with Whitmore Holdings. Furthermore, all funds previously allocated to joint ventures will be redirected to community legal organizations, including the Street Justice Initiative, to support individuals like Ms. Hart who have been wronged. He paused, his eyes steady as they swept across the audience. We must stand on the side of what's right, not what's powerful. Applause broke out, but not everyone was convinced. A reporter from the Financial Post stood. Mr. Langston, accusing a major rival like Whitmore Holdings could result in litigation. Is the Langston Group prepared for the legal risk? Damien gave a small, confident smile. Our legal team has reviewed every detail. Our evidence is third-party verified and indisputable. If Whitmore Holdings chooses to sue, we're ready to face them in court. But I trust the truth will speak for us. Next came a question from a NY1 reporter. Is Ms. Hart here today? How has she responded to your support? Damien answered without hesitation. Ms. Hart chose not to attend in order to protect her privacy. But I can say this, she is talented, principled, and the reason we're committed to initiatives like street justice. She doesn't need to be here to prove her worth. The press conference ended after 30 minutes, but the media storm had just begun. New headlines flooded the internet this time, praising Langston Group for its courage and denouncing Selena Whitmore. On X, the hashtag #Justice for Eliza began trending, with thousands sharing stories of Eliza's resilience. In her Queens apartment, Eliza sat at her laptop watching the live stream through a news site. She clutched a mug of coffee, eyes stinging as she listened to Damien's words. Not because he defended her, but because he understood that she never wanted to be a victim, never wanted the spotlight. She texted Maria, "They told the truth. I don't know what to feel." Maria replied instantly, "Feel proud, Eliza. You earned this." She stood and walked to the window, watching the misty rain fall on the street below. She thought of her mother, of the days she fought insurance companies tooth and nail. If her mother were alive, what would she say? Maybe something like, "You did the right thing, Eliza, not through lawsuits, but by living honestly." Eliza smiled for the first time in weeks, feeling lighter. Meanwhile, in her penthouse suite, Selena Whitmore sat frozen as the press conference replayed on the TV screen. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor, red liquid spreading like blood. "No," she whispered, face pale. Ethan, her assistant, stood silently in the corner. "You told me everything was untraceable," she shouted, whirling toward him. I don't know how they found it," Ethan stammered. "The offshore firm promised full discretion. Maybe Langston has more resources than we thought." Selena clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. She had underestimated Damien, and worse, she had underestimated Eliza. She thought she could crush a janitor. Now the entire city was turning on her. She grabbed her phone and scrolled through X. Each comment cut like a blade. Selena Whitmore is a coward. Langston did the right thing. Justice for Eliza. She threw her phone onto the couch, eyes blazing. "This isn't over," she said, voice low and dangerous. She would strike back, but this time, she would be smarter, colder. At Langston Group, Damien exited the conference room with Linda at his side. "You did it," she said, a hint of admiration in her tone. "But Whitmore won't sit still. Are you ready for what's next?" Damien nodded, gaze steady. "They can do whatever they want. We have the truth. And we have Ms. Hart." He paused, pulling out his phone and sending a short message to Eliza. "The truth has been revealed. If you ever need anything, I'm here not as a CEO, but as someone who believes in you." Eliza read the message while riding the subway to CUNY. She smiled faintly, warmth blooming in her chest. She didn't reply immediately, but deep down she knew. Damien hadn't saved her. He saw her just as she once saw him in that park, 8 years ago. She stepped off the train, Manhattan's lights glittering through the rain. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she didn't feel like she was just surviving. She was fighting, and she was winning. You're watching Soul Stories exclusive to our channel. If you're still with us, drop a comment. We read and cherish them all. Subscribe to support more heartfelt, original stories. Thanks for being part of the Soul Stories family. Chapter 9, Rebirth. Late November in Manhattan carried a stark kind of beauty-biting winds, pale sunlight stretching down the avenues. Eliza Hart walked through the gates of CUNY, her backpack heavy with law books, the soles of her worn sneakers scraping against the stone path. A week had passed since Langston Group's press conference. Life was returning to routine, but nothing was quite the same. Her name had been cleared, the smear articles had disappeared, replaced by features praising her resilience and Langston Group's bravery. On X, the hashtag number Justice for Eliza still trended, but she didn't read it. She didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to be herself. The scholarship office at CUNY sent an apology email offering to reinstate her scholarship. "We acted on misleading information," it said, "and regret the inconvenience." Eliza read the email, but instead of replying, she walked straight to the funding office. "Thank you," she told the clerk calmly, "but I'll pay my own tuition. I don't want to accept anything I can't be certain of." The clerk looked surprised, but Eliza simply smiled and walked away. She had taken out a small loan and planned to pick up extra work. To her, freedom mattered more than safety. That evening's civil law class unfolded as usual, but the atmosphere was different. Professor Rosenthal, who had once praised her quietly, stopped by her desk after class. "Ms. Hart," he said, glasses sliding down his nose, "I read about what happened. You handled it well, better than most lawyers I know." Eliza blushed, murmuring thanks. As she left the lecture hall, a few classmates waved at her, one even saying, "You're really strong, Eliza." She nodded, feeling a small warmth inside, though she still kept her distance. She didn't want attention, just progress. News of the press conference had reached the janitorial staff at Langston Group. Reggie, the security guard, gave her a warm hug when she arrived for her morning shift. "Knew you'd make it, kid," he said, eyes gleaming. Javier, her co-worker, punched her shoulder lightly. "You're a star now, Hart. Don't let folks like Selena come back for round 2, yeah?" Eliza laughed for the first time in weeks. It felt real. She pushed the cart, wiped desks, emptied trash cans, but every motion now held new meaning. She wasn't just a janitor. She was Eliza Hart, the girl who had stood tall through the storm. That afternoon, instead of returning to the Street Justice Project where she hadn't yet been reinstated, Eliza headed to the Langston Legal Aid Center, another branch of the company focused on free legal services. She had long researched the center, knowing they helped people like her mother once was, those abandoned by the system. She stood at the reception desk in a denim jacket, backpack on her shoulder. "I'm Eliza Hart," she said to the manager, a middle-aged woman named Carla. "I'd like to apply for an internship. I'm a law student at CUNY, and I want to help." Carla raised an eyebrow, clearly recognizing the name. "Ms. Hart, we've heard of you, but you've been through a lot recently. Are you sure?" Eliza nodded, her gaze steady. "I'm sure. I'm not here because of anyone else. I'm here because I believe in this work." Carla smiled and handed her a form. "All right, submit your application, but I have a feeling you'll fit right in." As Eliza left the center, her phone buzzed. A message from Damian Langston. "The truth won, Eliza. This time, I'm not writing as a CEO, just as someone who owes you and wants to walk with you." She read the message, her heart quickening. Something about the way he wrote, not as a CEO, but as a person, struck her deeply. She thought of him, the shaky boy in the park, the man who stood before a city to defend her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed a reply. "You can walk with me, but no pulling." She hit send, smiling at the thought of Damian reading her text. She didn't know where this relationship would go, but she knew one thing. Whatever happened, she'd walk on her own feet. Across Manhattan, Selena Whitmore sat in her office at Whitmore Holdings, her expression blank. The Langston Group's press conference had landed hard. Stock prices dropped 8%, partners pulled out, and her board of directors was now questioning her leadership. Her father, the company chairman, had called with a chilling tone, "Selena, you made this mess. Fix it or step aside." She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. She didn't apologize, didn't feel regret, only rage. Eliza Hart, a cleaning girl, had upended her world. She opened her laptop and scrolled through the latest articles. One from the New York Times read, "Eliza Hart, from victim of fake news to symbol of resilience." Selena slammed the laptop shut, eyes blazing. She had lost a battle, but not the war. She called Ethan, her assistant. "Find another way," she said, voice low and dangerous. "I don't care how, but I want Eliza Hart gone from Manhattan." Ethan nodded, though his eyes held unease. Selena didn't notice. She stared out the window, the city lights blinking like a challenge. She wouldn't let a girl like Eliza steal her spotlight. Meanwhile, Damien sat in his office, rereading Eliza's message. "You can walk with me, but no pulling." He smiled a rare, genuine smile. He thought of her not as a symbol of justice, but as the woman who saw him when he was nothing. He called Linda Carter. "Has Ms. Hart returned to the Street Justice Project?" he asked. Linda answered, "She just applied for an internship at Legal Aid Center. She said she doesn't want to go back. She wants to start fresh, on her own terms." Damien nodded, unsurprised. That was Eliza always choosing the harder path, but the right one. He looked out the window. The rain had stopped, leaving a clear sky. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew he wanted to be part of it, not to lead Eliza, but to walk beside her. Back in her Queens apartment, Eliza dropped her backpack to the floor. She opened the cupboard, grabbed a packet of instant noodles, and this time, she added an egg. A small luxury, a personal reward. She sat at her desk, law book open, the glow of her study lamp lighting the page. She didn't know about Selena's new scheme, didn't see the storms ahead. But she knew one thing. She had stood back up, and she would keep standing. Chapter 10. A beginning born from integrity. Manhattan in early December shimmered with Christmas lights, twinkling strings wrapped around trees along Fifth Avenue, mingling with the biting chill of winter air. Inside a newly renovated building on the Lower East Side, the Langston Hart Legal Center was inaugurated with a ceremony that was both formal and warm. The glass-walled hall overlooking the busy street was packed with guest lawyers, community organizers, journalists, and Langston Group employees. A large sign bore the words, "Langston Hart Legal Center, Justice for All." Eliza Hart's name, paired with Damien Langston's, had become the symbol of the event, but she wasn't fazed. She stood in the center of the room in a tailored navy blue suit, her hair tied back, her eyes bright with quiet pride. Nearly a year had passed since the press conference that changed everything. Eliza was now a licensed attorney, having graduated from CUNY with honors and passed the New York State Bar exam. She worked full-time at the Langston Legal Aid Center, representing wrongfully evicted tenants, exploited workers, and families who couldn't afford legal help. Every case reminded her of her mother, of the days she had battled insurance companies alone. Eliza didn't just work, she lived for justice, and this center bearing her and Damien's names was proof of that. Damien stepped up to the podium, his charcoal gray suit accentuating his tall frame. He scanned the room, his eyes pausing on Eliza, a subtle smile passing his lips. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his deep voice echoing through the mic, "the Langston Hart Legal Center is not just a building. It is a promise that justice should not be a luxury for the wealthy. It is a right for all of us." Applause filled the hall. Damien continued, his tone warmer. "I want to thank someone who helped shape this center. Eliza Hart, a gifted lawyer, a guardian of justice, and above all, a woman of unshakable integrity. She doesn't just work here, she is the soul of this place." All eyes turned to Eliza. She smiled softly, not shy, but not seeking attention either. She stepped onto the stage as Damien gestured toward her, flashbulbs popping. "I'm not great with speeches," she said clearly, "but I want to say this. Justice doesn't come from power or money. It comes from those who dare to stand up, no matter how little they have. I'm here for them, and I will keep fighting for them." Applause erupted again, and Damien looked at her, his eyes glowing with pride. After the ceremony, Eliza and Damien walked through the Lower East Side, Christmas lights reflecting on the rain-slick sidewalks. They stopped by a street cart selling hot cocoa, their breath turning to white mist in the cold. Damien handed her a paper cup, their fingers briefly touching. "You were incredible today," he said softly. "Not many people can get a standing ovation with just one line." Eliza sipped the cocoa, the warmth tinting her cheeks. "I just told the truth," she replied with a smile. "But thank you, Damien, not just for the center, but for seeing me, even when I was just a janitor." Damien tilted his head, his gaze gentle and sincere. "I saw you before that, Eliza, in the park, 8 years ago, and every day since you walked into my life. You're not just a lawyer or an inspiring story. You're the person who made me want to be better." Her heart raced not from nerves, but from something deeper. There was something in the way Damien spoke, not as a CEO, but as a man that made her feel seen, close. Over the past year, they had shared small moments: coffee after work, conversations about justice on subway rides, even the time he secretly attended her court hearing to watch her argue a case. Those quiet moments had built a bond that didn't need grand declarations. She looked at him, Christmas lights reflecting in her eyes. "You know," she said, teasing slightly, "I used to think you were one of those cold CEOs who'd never drink cocoa from a street cart." Damien laughed deep, rare, and warm. "And I used to think you'd sue me for making you walk in this cold," he shot back. They kept walking, shoulder to shoulder, not holding hands, but close enough that it didn't matter. Eliza thought of her mother, of the days she doubted herself. Now she was a lawyer, standing for people like her mom once was. And Damien, not a savior, not a benefactor, but a partner, was beside her, sharing the dream. Across Manhattan, Selena Whitmore sat in her office at Whitmore Holdings, her eyes hollow. She had lost her executive role after the scandal, reassigned to a ceremonial position to make amends. She scrolled past an article about the center's opening, paused at a photo of Eliza and Damien on stage. She clenched her fist, but this time, not in anger. She was tired. "She won," Selena muttered, closing the laptop. She wouldn't admit defeat, but she knew continuing to go after Eliza would only cost her more. Back in her Queens apartment, now adorned with a small, twinkling Christmas tree, Eliza texted Maria. "Opening's done. I'm officially a lawyer. Can you believe it?" Maria replied instantly. "Believe it! Where's the party? And spill about that CEO guy." Eliza chuckled, texting back, "Just cocoa, but enough." She messaged Reggie next. "The center's open. Hope you'll come visit." Reggie replied, "Wouldn't miss it, kiddo. Proud of you." Eliza sat at her desk, opening a new case file, the desk lamp casting light on the page. She didn't know that Selena had finally let go, didn't know the storms were behind her. But she knew this. She had found her path, not handed to her, but chosen. She looked out the window, the Manhattan lights twinkling back at her. A message came in from Damien. "Next cocoa's on me, but you picked the spot, okay?" Eliza smiled, typing back, "Only if you promise to stop calling me Ms. Hart." She hit send, warmth blooming in her chest, not a fairy tale, but a beginning. She was Eliza Hart, lawyer, defender of justice, and above all, fully herself.